Next is from Jerry's Tadros. Subject is question for the crew. Hey K100 crew, hope you guys are doing well. I listened to Jim Cornette tell a story about how the Macho Man broke Bill Dundee's jaw for wearing trunks that said Macho Man. I went down a weird rabbit hole and found out that Randy Savage beat up a cook in a Waffle House, then took on a police squad that were called in, only to be taken down by the police dogs. Then I heard a story about how Randy and Hawk fought each other at a Kid Rock concert over a past feud. In his promos, he reminded me of a bomb that could go off any second. And was he always wound up so tight in the locker room? Did other wrestlers know not to start something with the Macho Man? Take care. Yeah, he was like, you know what's funny too? It's like when you think of like macho, like the word macho. It's like in the year, like everybody kind of like connotates that like that like Randy Savage. Like that's like a macho guy, you know. That's like because like he was like he like perfected that like he was so popular. Yeah, he was wound up tight, man. No, I don't know who would mess with him. He's a big guy too. He had big arms and
It's
stuff.
kind of
Who would mess with him?
it's kind of funny because a lot of those guys they came from the territories and they were wild and there were no rules and you had to fight and bro, there's no guys like Macho Man, not even close in today's wrestling. The characters that we had before and the legit tough guys today, it's a like mostly nerds. You know what I'm saying? And but Macho, bro, he was the real deal. He was always very paranoid, and I'm sure you've heard this story, Disco, that when he was dating that girl Stephanie Frankenstein or whatever the her
Gorgeous
name was,
George.
remember? Do you remember
Uh,
Disco?
no, no.
Yeah, Gorgeous George, Di. She
Okay,
was
no,
an
go short. Yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that when he would leave the house, he'd have cameras that she didn't even know about, like
Mhm.
spying on her to make sure nobody, went there. And I remember him. I remember that Hall and Nash were telling him one time, him and Hogan should shave their hair and that look like and just shave it. And because remember he had that freeze dried straw hair,
Mm-hmm.
Macho, really dry.
Yeah.
And I remember Macho telling me when they left the table, he was like, I hope those guys are serious because if I cut my hair and they don't, I'm gonna whoop their. And I told Hall and Nash, I go, just so you know, this guy's if you guys are playing around, he's gonna come after you. So if he cuts his hair, you better be able to cut your hair,
Right.
And they,
Right.
oh yeah, we'll cut our hair. I could not see Hall or Nash cutting their hair,
No, not at all.
and it would have been on if Macho would have cut his hair and they didn't, because that's how he was. He was always highly wound up, right,
That's an interesting
bro?
story too.
I remember one time we were in a car, me and DDP, and there was a song on by Madonna. I forget what it was. And in the middle of the song, there was a guy that was rapping that sounded just like Macho. And to trigger him, because he was easy to trigger, we're like, bro, they're copying you. They didn't even get some guy's imitating your voice, and he didn't even get your permission. Who is it? What's his name? Does Madonna know? And he would just freak out. He was uh, Macho was one of a kind, bro. I was always a Macho fan, always.